Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to one more lesson on Proverbs before we go back to 1 month to live. We do hope you finished and enjoyed your time through Proverbs, a challenge for all of us, and we enjoyed working through it with you. Last Sunday was the last chapter of Proverbs, Proverbs 31. We didn't cover it, so we're going to cover it today and do a wrap-up. But first, Anna, welcome. You're here live with us.
Hi, Anna.
Yeah, it's great to be here. If you remember last week, we didn't have a specific drawing prompt, but we actually got a submission from Meg. Thank you, Meg. Her drawing was pretty hilarious. And this week I decided to do a drawing that's based on Proverbs 31. And I did a woman who is dressed as a superhero with a bunch of different attributes that are found in Proverbs 31. Because I think a lot of the times when you're reading that, it's kind of something that you aspire to be almost. It seems kind of unattainable sometimes. And I think a superhero is a pretty good representation of that.
It is. And that's a great superhero with a cape.
Yep.
And a 31.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I like it. It's very inspiring. Nice job, Anna. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we do appreciate your help each week in your drawings, and we hope everyone enjoyed those and participated. We tried to make this very participative. That's the right way to say that word. Because it's more fun when we're together, and even though we're not together physically, we hope this drew people together. So that was excellent. Thank you, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Anna. Great.
Yeah, so David actually preached on this, I think, last Mother's Day, and talked about how this section of Proverbs was probably not written by Solomon, as it says in the intro to, I think, chapter 30, but it's wisdom or advice from a mother to her son about picking out a godly woman to marry. And obviously, as Anna just mentioned, this list is intense. It's hard to feel like you could ever measure up to that, but when you take it as advice and to think through and to aspire for, it's a nice list of things that really, whether you're male or female, really makes a lot of sense for us to aspire to, and great, interesting thing. Is there anything that jumped out at you, Anna?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of things, and the ones where she's making clothes for her family. I mean, who does that anymore?
Right.
I don't know, unless you're Miss Carol, but I mean,
Right.
There are so many things in here, and I mean, we don't, some of these are scenario based, I guess, but she just cares for her family, she takes care of the household. These are still things that a mother or even a father will do for the family.
Right. Yeah, one thing is, I think it's important not to just see this as a to-do list, right? We don't need to accomplish all these things every day in our lives, but to me, it's more about being available. So if these things come our way, if opportunities come our way, then how will we demonstrate our godliness in those situations?
Absolutely. Yeah, and there were two verses that jumped out for me. The first one is verse 20 of chapter 31. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. And I see my wife doing this all the time, and it's really, the blessings of a woman who sees the needs in the world and acts upon them. We say that women have great intuition, and a mother's love and caring really can't be beat in that area. So when they see someone who has a need, to just reach out and to help.
Right. Very nice. Absolutely.
Yeah, the other verse I selected was verse 28. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. We have a saying that says, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Yes, exactly. And a woman really can create that peace and harmony in the home. And it's so powerful to do that. And then you look at how her family praises her. They call her blessed, and her husband also sees the benefits. And again, that is so great in my house, where my wife takes that truly upon her to create such an awesome environment. And this is not easy. This is a big challenge, but to have that peacemaker label, call it a homemaker, call it a peacemaker, but it's that peace and harmony in the home.
So is that true, Anna? If mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Would you agree with that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Now
Happy wife, happy life, Aaron.
Now we're in
Yeah.
trouble. We can't let her watch this.
Yeah, exactly. No, we'll cut that part out for the public.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, great verses, Aaron. Very much. Thank you. The 28 kind of ties into a couple that stood out to me. 11 and 12, the heart of her husband does safely trust in her. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. I really like this one because it shows the relationship between husband and wife. He has full confidence in her, and she brings nothing bad to him. She only brings him good. He has a good life because of her. She brings him good and not harm. So many times we remember that relationships are two-way street. And so even though this chapter is kind of focused around the wife, it's also the husband that participates in the relationship. And so they are to love each other as well as be in love. Love being, working for and hoping toward the best for others. And I love the way these two verses put that together for her. The next one that caught my attention, the last verse of the chapter, I really loved it. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. It complements 11 and 12, and it really complements the entire chapter. It's all the wonderful things that the wife has done. The husband is to honor her. It's easy to read this chapter and look at your wife and kind of like, well, a little bit like Anna was saying, does she do this? Does she do that? Maybe she doesn't check all the boxes, but relationships are a two-way street. And so supporting her in the way that she brings peace and harmony to the household and honoring her for that makes a difference in her life and in yours and in everyone's involved.
Yeah, excellent. Those are really great points, and it is working together. It's never just one person. No one could create this peace and harmony unless someone's helping it to be that way. And it's so important to have really where we're working together to accomplish this.
Absolutely. So that's chapter 31. So we should move on to the wrap up then.
We should.
Oh,
thanks, Anna. We appreciate Anna being a part of this. She's going to run off.
Okay,
Anna.
bye, Anna. Thanks for coming.
See you next time.
Make sure you watch this, later so you can.
Of course. I always do.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks. See ya.
So Terry, did you say you had lots of thoughts on this?
Oh my, Aaron, I have so many thoughts on Proverbs. It was rich all the way through. I loved everything about it.
Wow.
But I did whittle it down though, because I like simple points and I like short points. And I know because of, our viewers' attention span, we want to keep this in under 14 minutes. But I do have one thing that stood out to me about Proverbs. All the stuff that we've pointed out, all the things that we've talked about, and we've talked about this point probably like 97 times in all the lessons that we've done together, Aaron. But here's the point. What are we going to do with what we've read? What are we going to do with Proverbs, right? So we read through Proverbs, and one way to look at this is three of the things that we should be thinking about are, wow, what I just read applies to me and my life, my situation right now, right? It applies to me right now. We could be thinking too, wow, this applied to me in the past. This is information that I could have used yesterday, right? Or this is information, as we read, the third thing would be, this is something I may use for tomorrow. This is something I should keep handy. I should be ready. I should be able to recognize this situation that comes up in my life. But in all three cases, Proverbs tells us as we read, even what we should do with what we read. 6:21 reads, bind them on your heart always, tie them around your neck. Keep these proverbs with you and close to you at all times. 7:1 reads, my son, keep my words and store up my commands with you. Keep my commands and you will live. Guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So we keep these proverbs close to us for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. What are we doing with them?
Mm-hmm.
Even Deuteronomy, there's 7:1 and 2. I love the little kids reading the Bible. It's fantastic. And then Deuteronomy 11, fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads, teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up, write them on the door frames on your houses and on your gates. And I think you referenced this verse a couple of episodes ago. We often ask, what's in it for me? And as we read through Proverbs, we probably have the tendency to think, well, what's in it for me? Well, why do I need to keep Proverbs close to me? Well, verse 21 in Deuteronomy 11 reads, so that your days, and the days of your children may be many, right? There's something in here for us to follow these things, to live wisely and not foolishly. And Proverbs gives us that foundation. So that's my very simple point. What are we going to do with what we've read and spent the last 31 days on?
Yeah, those are great points. It is, you're not going to use every one of those wisdom sayings that we read in Proverbs today.
Right.
But when you look over your life, how they apply, and then kind of how you tied in Deuteronomy, fix, teach, tie, write. Those are great ways that we continually interact with these Proverbs.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my thought on Proverbs. What do you think of Proverbs, Aaron? What did you get out of it?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this study. I've done it this way before, and this week as we finished up Proverbs, I just continued reading into the next book, which is Ecclesiastes, and that's also a fascinating study, and it's a part of wisdom literature in the Bible, and so it does tie together with the book of Proverbs, and it's also by the same author, Solomon.
And I think it's Rick's favorite book.
Is it Rick Hipp's favorite book?
I think it is Rick Hipp's favorite book. He'll have to speak up on that.
He will. And really, the book of Ecclesiastes is really, about Solomon looking at life to see where there's meaning. He sees wisdom and he sees folly, both leading to the same end, which is death. He also sees that, wise man who's handled his world or his possessions very well, at the end of his life, having to hand it over to another who isn't as wise. Who's foolish like a son. And he begins to wonder, really, of this wisdom, really, are there any benefits or what is the purpose to life? So after you've just read through Proverbs, he starts looking at the practical side is, really, what is the point?
Right.
And as Ecclesiastes is famous for, it's meaningless, utterly meaningless. What is the meaning of life? And as we get into a couple verses that I enjoyed out of the first part of Ecclesiastes, verses 16 and 17, I thought to myself, look, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who's ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of madness and folly. But I learned that this too is chasing after the wind. And then moving into chapter 2, I saw that wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise man has eyes in his head while the fool walks in the darkness. But I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both. And that's where he starts, really looking in is what is the purpose of even seeking out wisdom and being wise and trying to apply this?
Right. Yeah. And so it's great the way that he characterizes this, right, as meaningless. He's made the lap around the track, and, he encourages us throughout the book of Ecclesiastes to live our lives wisely.
That's right. And that's kind of where, his wisdom kicks in. He looks at all this and he says, well, what's the point? I'm going to die. The fool's going to die. Or I manage my household so well and I have to give it over to someone else. But then his wisdom really kicks in, and his wisdom said, you know what, my wisdom has provided me much. And there clearly is a benefit to being more of a wise person than a fool, even though we meet the same end. Right. So it was really a great wrap up. We do all meet the same end, but living a life full of wisdom is not only the right thing to do, but it provides us with so many practical benefits, and it is from God and it honors God. So we should follow the wisdom, that God has given us, but also enjoy life. That's one of the things he ends with: enjoy life and live life. And you know what? That sounds a lot like we were talking about of our 1 month to live study. Live life for a purpose.
Absolutely, right. Enjoy the journey, right?
Enjoy the journey. And he kind of ends Ecclesiastes with a whole bunch of little things. Be happy. Let your heart give you joy. Follow the ways of your heart, but know that God will bring you judgment. Remember the Creator, fear God, and keep his commandments. Just a great way to end, the book of Ecclesiastes, really, as he just looks back on his life of Proverbs.
Right. And so,
but there was one other thing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You please.
No, I was going to go into my verses. So you go ahead with what you were going to say.
I've been listening to a lot of Ravi Zacharias this week. I was on the road a lot, and he's passed away, obviously. But he quoted. He had a quote there on one of the sermons that I listened to that said, Man can only choose to chase love or power, but neither man can achieve both. You achieve one of these. Well, obviously, Christ was able to achieve both through God, but that really puts it in perspective, right? All the things in Proverbs, all the things in Ecclesiastes, which are we going to choose? Are we going to choose to chase love throughout our lives and all these wonderful things that God has to offer us? Or are we going to choose power, right? And put all our confidence in ourselves and in our fellow man?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And really, there were 5 verses that I've memorized from Proverbs. 5 verses that this week has been a crazy week in the world, in the U.S. with so many things happening. And these are verses that really give me peace, even in the crazy times. And so I'm gonna run through these pretty quick, but there's so much of this wisdom in Proverbs that we can grab onto and really apply to our lives. And that's why, one of the reasons why I like Proverbs so much. So the first 4 are from Proverbs 3, and the last one is from Proverbs 4. Chapter 3, verse 3, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And then moving on to chapter 4, verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. There's just so much that we need to take care of in our lives. And these verses are really important as I do that in mine.
Absolutely. They're great reminders, like you said, right? You can pick up Proverbs and you can find peace in there. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this was a great study and a great reminder of the wisdom we all need and our world needs, obviously, after a week like this.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Aaron, for doing the study, encouraging us to do it, staying in with everyone for 31 days and 31 verses. It's actually been a great study. And like we've said a couple of times, it doesn't have to end here, right? Grab Proverbs, grab your Bible anytime, day or night. You're looking for peace. You're looking for wisdom. You're looking to avoid foolishness. Start in Proverbs if you can't think of any place else to start. It doesn't have to just be a month that's got 31 days in it.
That's right. That's right. And and do this with mini books. Again, if you need what next, try Ecclesiastes and look to apply that back into what we've learned in Proverbs. And then we'll be back to 1 month to live next week.
Next week it is. So thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate it. We'll see you all next time.
Very good. Bye-bye, Terry.
Bye.